Support for WYES is made possible by Mary Lou Kristovich in memory of her husband, William Kristovich.
Scout Laborde, and welcome to Steppin Out, spotlighting the New Orleans area's arts and entertainment scene. Seated at our table tonight, Amici Organization's Philip Straub, here to discuss the Metropolitan Opera Finals right here in New Orleans this weekend. Welcome once
Thank
again.
You. Glad
Good
to be
see
here.
You. Hey, Poppy Tucker, host of the radio program Louisiana Eats, airing twice weekly on WWNO Radio. Hi, Miss Poppy.
Hi,
hello. We are so thrilled he's here. Actor Joel Veig, who appeared in the original Broadway production of Hairspray, but Joel is here for the Tennessee Williams Festival with his one-man Truman Capote show, and he'll even be performing for us a little bit later. Great to have you here, sir. Hello. And stepping out, theater critic, Alan Smason, whose website is theatercriticism.com. But first up, Poppy.
A lot of upcoming events this spring that everybody needs to make plans for and mark on their calendar, because these things are going to sell out quickly. We're going to start off with the My Fair Mid-City Food Tour. And it's one of those charming walk around, dine around, drink around experiences. It takes place on Thursday, April 5th from 5:30 until 9:30. And it's such a cool idea because they're starting at Blue Oak Barbecue. And of course, that was the winners of last year's Great Hogs for the Cause. Then from there, they go to one of our favorites, Brown Butter, and their food is so gorgeous. They're going to have some great surprises. Broccatas is part of the evening, and everything will end up at Revel, where Nick Bella, who's the head chef formerly at Vessel, is just doing some amazing things. And of course, that's Laura and Chris McMillan's place. So Chris McMillan, you know, purportedly actually one of the greatest bartenders in the city, one of the founders of the American Cocktail Museum, he'll be mixing up a special drink. There will be specially curated drinks at each stop, but there's two options, because for $62 you can get the drink and food option, or if you just want to go along for the food only, that's a $48 ticket. You check in between 5:30 and 6 o'clock that night. It's a total half-mile stroll, so you want to make sure that you're wearing your comfortable shoes, and a portion of the proceeds goes to benefit the Barman's Fund of Louisiana, so it's even for a good cause. And then this is truly a once-in-a-lifetime experience. This is like going to Italy for some classes on butchering. The man who is considered the culinary world's finest butcher, Dario Caccini, is coming to New Orleans May 8th and 9th. Now, the reason he's coming is because Dickie Brennan's son, Richard, so that's Richard III, Richard III has a great culinary interest, and he went through the Culinary Institute of America, and while he was there, he was told that Dario was the very best butcher in the whole world.
He can make it happen, huh?
He got in touch with Dario, and he got to go apprentice with him in Canzano, Italy, which is in the Chianti region. Now, the interesting thing about Dario is that he had originally studied to be a vet, but then his father died, and it was up to him to take over the tradition of the family business, because this is actually a 250-year-old family legacy of butchering, and he's been carrying the family flag for the last 42 years. Richard had come home from this fantastic apprenticeship, and he's already started to apply some of that amazing nose-to-tail concept, because as he had studied to be a vet, Dario had, he's taking that same philosophy into very humane butchering, and if you're going to eat the animal, you should honor him by eating every bit. So there's something new, for instance, that's on the regular steakhouse menu called an oyster steak. Now, I immediately thought fried oysters on top of the steak. That's not it at all. This is Richard III's favorite cut. It's a super tender, small cut from above the backbone on the rump of a cow. So what's going to happen on these 2 days in May? You start off on Tuesday the 8th with Butcher for a Day with Dario, and you're going to see him demonstrate his skills on a whole side of both Louisiana beef and swine. And he will be butchering the pieces that will go into the butcher's dinner. So that's $100, and that takes place from 10 until noon. Then the butcher's dinner that night, again at the steakhouse. Now, the first course is going to be steak tartare. The menu is incredible. Rosemary rump, warm beef salad. It's a 5-course meal. A Florentine T-bone steak, braised beef and onions, and potatoes with Chianti butter. The dessert is an olive oil cake. And so this is going to be a very swell event. And then on Wednesday night, they're going to host a Florentina steak picnic at Tableau. Now imagine how fantastic this is going to be. It's going to be a flight of traditional Florentina steaks featuring 5 different cuts prepared from the entire loin and leg of a cow, cooked on outdoor grills, so you'll get to witness all of this out in that courtyard with Dario Caccini and Dickie's culinary team. There's going to be Tuscan-style family dining with wines on both nights from the Castello di Ama. Now, here's the catch. There's early bird tickets available until March the 30th. So $165 for the butcher's dinner, $135 for the Florentina steak picnic. Go online, get your tickets. If you love meat, if you have any interest in butchering, this is the event of a lifetime without traveling to Italy.
Thank you, Bobby.
Thank you.
And we turn to Philip. And Amice is an organization of like-minded fans of opera coming together to really do quite the nice turn to help budding opera stars.
Yes, every year the Metropolitan Opera has an auditions program that goes through 4 steps. It starts at district, goes to region, goes to semifinals in New York, and finals in New York. And, probably 20 some odd years ago, a group of like-minded opera lovers in New Orleans got together and created this support group called Amici. It has several hundred volunteers, and what we do is we work with the Met to put together, to coordinate the auditions here in New Orleans at the district level. We also have a Gulf Coast region that is headquartered here in New Orleans, and it currently has 4 districts: New Orleans, Houston, Puerto Rico, and Winter Park, Florida. Unfortunately, because of Hurricane Maria, Puerto Rico was not able to do district auditions this year, so their singers had to go to various other places in the country. But we will have singers coming from Puerto Rico through other districts, from Houston, from Winter Park, and the winners of the auditions on Saturday who will be participating in the regional finals on Sunday.
So this weekend's very busy.
Very busy, very busy. Now, it's important to understand also that we bring in professional artists to judge these auditions. These are not just people who come in off the street to say, yeah, he should go, yeah, she should go. For example, this year we have Michael Heaston, who is the Metropolitan Opera judge, William Florescu, who is the general director of the Florentine Opera in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, Bruce Donnell, who is a stage director from Santa Fe and who has directed here in New Orleans as well. And just so that these singers can get some actual feedback from a singer, Kevin Langan, who's a world-renowned bass from New Jersey. It's important now for me to tell you when these will be happening.
Yes.
We will have district auditions on Saturday, starting at about 9:30 in the morning, running until about 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon. On Sunday, the regional finals will start at about 1:30 and go until about 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Both will be held at Roussel Hall on the Loyola University campus.
So, Amice, for more information, we can go to the website, of course.
Yes, there is we created several years ago an Amici website for Amici in New Orleans. It's very difficult to remember. AMICI, Amici, MONC, Monk, Metropolitan Opera National Council, .org.
Okay, and you can get information about volunteering and all that good stuff too.
Yes.
Yes.
There are 2 easy ways to do it. One is to go to the website, amicimonk.org, or you can contact either Diane Dupin, who is a co-chair of the Gulf Coast region, or Claire Stahl, who is the president of the Amici Group.
Wonderful. And what I like, though, is that you're raising money to, let's just say, if a budding opera singer doesn't have enough money for a really nice tuxedo, or maybe money to get up to New York, that's where you come in.
Oh yeah, we have been known to raise $20,000–$30,000 in a year, and we have had occasions where a singer did not have the dress to sing in New York, and we had to buy one.
Well, many thanks. Absolutely. And New Orleans Magazine's quiz queen, Julia Street, has a question for us. Last time, Gaynell Johnson gave us the names of the 2 oldest restaurants in the quarter and what streets they're located on. The answers are Antoine's on St. Louis, of course, and Tujague's on Decatur Street. Now, tonight's question. Who wrote that book? Now, tonight's question. Maggie is the first name of the lead character in which Tennessee Williams play, and who played the role in the film? Email your answers to steppinout@wyes.org. Our prizes: a year's subscription to Louisiana Life magazine, a dish towel with the message, "Love is Gumbo," from our friends at wearablevegetables.com, and a pair of free admission passes to either the Audubon Zoo, Aquarium of the Americas, or the Butterfly Garden and Insectarium. You can go to wyes.org for our online calendar to see our lineup of events, including the annual Jamie Galloway Crawfish Boil this Sunday, benefiting the New Orleans Musicians Clinic. You can also link to our WYES YouTube channel to view our program. Now, Joel, you have been at the Tennessee Williams Festival off and on for many years, but to come back and Truman Capote talks about Tennessee. Tell me about what we're going to be seeing in just a few minutes, and tell me about how you first met Truman Capote.
Well, a few years ago, I started really looking into the relationship between Truman and Tennessee, which was not a romantic relationship, but it was one of the greatest literary friendships of all time. And so I put together this show called Truman Talks Tennessee, which basically charts the friendship that started in the 40s and continued right up until the 80s. And it really is like a roller coaster ride. At times they were the best of friends. They traveled together. They rented houses together. Eventually Truman annoyed Tennessee to the point that Tennessee sued Truman. Truman sued Tennessee. But by the time they sort of reached the 1980s, they had sort of come to this realization that they liked each other more than they disliked each other. And then Truman dedicated his last major work to Tennessee Williams. And he was one of the greatest proponents of Tennessee as one of the greatest writers of America. And he stood up for him after he died in a way that almost no one else did. And I thought that that's really kind of a remarkable thing for somebody who, most people have this idea that Truman was always this kind of bitchy, gossipy person, but he really did, he believed in Tennessee.
Tell us what we're going to see in just a moment that you're going to do for us.
Oh, actually, this is when Tennessee, a lot of people don't realize, they think Glass Menagerie put Tennessee on the map and everything was smooth sailing after that, but it was a huge hit. Glass Menagerie was a huge hit in New York, and there was a great deal of excitement because Lorette Taylor, unfortunately, could not do the London production. Lorette died, and so there was an announcement made that Helen Hayes was going to be making her London debut, playing in the Glass Menagerie, directed by John Gielgud. And so Tennessee was meant to be part of this whole thing, and it turned out to be an absolute debacle that he wanted to escape, and he ended up booking passage on the Queen Mary to come back, and this is a story that happens on the Queen Mary when both Tennessee and Truman were passengers on the crossing from...
Right. Well, for many years, of course, Joel Vieg has appeared around the country performing with his great friend, actress Patricia Neal, and at the Tennessee Williams Festival as well. Now, let's hear from Joel Vieg as Truman Capote.
You never really know a person as well as when you travel with them. In 1948, after a disastrous production of the Glass Menagerie in London, Tennessee booked a passage crossing from London to New York on the Queen Mary, and I booked passage too. We had the greatest time I've ever had in our lives. Nothing made Tennessee happier than having someone who could make him laugh, and he loved to laugh. The only fly in the ointment was there was a particular Episcopal bishop who was also booked on this crossing, who took one look at me and, like a hobo looking at a ham sandwich, fell in love. Well, I had no interest in him. He was a good deal older than either Tennessee or myself. He was overweight, red-faced. He tried to hide the fact that he was an alcoholic by powder and mouthwash and a good dose of Old Spice cologne. He used to follow us around the ship, always wanting to know what we were doing and if he could join us. I had no patience for him, but Tennessee had a grandfather who was a member of the Episcopal clergy, so he had a lot more tolerance for this particular individual. In fact, he even would prod me toward having some sort of romantic tryst. Tennessee would say, "Can't you give him just a little sample?" Or another time said, "Why don't you think of it as your particular donation to the church?" Tennessee was getting a good deal more amusement out of this than I was. And one day he said to me, "Couldn't you just give him a little something to remember you by?" And I said, "What a good idea. I think I'll do just that." At that particular moment, almost as if on cue, the Episcopal bishop arrived, batting his eyes and fanning himself. I said, "I'm beside myself. I'm beside myself." He said, "Whatever for?" I said, "Well, I've had this particular hankering." "A hankering?" he said, looking at me wistfully. I said, "Yes, I've had this hankering, this terrible hankering." And at that moment, I pointed at his ring finger and said, "I've always wanted to get me one of them bishop's rings." There was a deadly silence. Nobody spoke at all. And then finally he broke the silence and said, "Well, the only way to get a bishop's ring is to become a bishop." He said it the way you would explain something to an idiot child. I said, "Oh, I didn't realize. I always thought maybe I'd be able to find one in a pawn shop, you know, turned in by some defrocked bishop." Well, he excused himself, and I did not see him again the entire crossing. I later turned to Tennessee and said, "You see, Tennessee, it's sort of like a chess game. When a bishop takes on a queen, goodbye, bishop."
All right. A reminder that you can see Truman Talks Tennessee this Sunday at the La Nouvelle Ballroom in the Hotel Montleon. The performance starts at 1 p.m. and there will be an introduction by me. And so now it's time, though, for our Artist Spotlight. Tonight we are showcasing work by two artists featured at the RHINO Contemporary Craft Gallery's upcoming event. This is a work of art from craftsman Jerry Hemel. And then we also have a sculpture by artist Chris Manconi. You can see more works from these artists at RHINO Gallery's Spring Fling Gala. The event is free, and it will be held tomorrow from 5 to 8 p.m. Visit rhinocrafts.com for more information about the gallery. Alan!
Well, first off, I know the last week you admired my Tennessee Williams tie. 3 years ago, the American Theater Critics Association got together, and we had a logo that was made for it on my tie today. And I wanted to give you a gift from me to you. This says Tennessee Williams' famous quote, "I don't want realism, I want magic." It's a tile that comes from my friend up in Rhode Island.
Thank you so much.
Her name is Tsitsi Initiative, and all of her work goes to benefit children and seniors. And she makes ties and makes tiles. So I want you to have that.
I have to order some ties, too. Thank
So
you
now,
very
we're
much.
going to get to more of Tennessee Williams later, but first, there's a ghost hanging out at the Paris Opera House who's stalking one of those opera's divas. And yes, it's none other than the new production of Andrew Lloyd Webber's The Phantom of the Opera, currently playing out its final shows at the Sanger Theater. This is, again, the new production. It stars Quentin Oliver Lee, who follows Norm Lewis as one of the first men of color to play the Phantom. Now, while I found Lee's voice a bit weak in the first act, where he has to hit those high notes in music a night in Phantom of the Opera. He did come about in the second act, and it may have been just a sort of an off night for him. But on the other hand, Ava Tavares, who played Christine Daae, was absolutely exquisite as the young opera star taken under the wing of the Phantom. Jordan Craig is also quite good as Raoul, the Vicomte de Chagny, and there's a real reason, obviously, that the Phantom of the Opera is the longest running show on Broadway. It's a simple yet thrilling story with a lot of special effects. I really like the new set design. I thought it worked very well. Again, the Phantom of the Opera playing at the Sanger Theater against the Tennessee Williams New Orleans Literary Festival, but it's still there nevertheless. Now on to the Tennessee Williams Festival. Last night I got a chance to see what I think is one of the best things Ricky Graham has ever directed. It's the first of two shows on this double bill for Southern Rep. It's called And Tell Sad Stories of the Death of the Queens. Again, a play on a quote from Richard II. This is a one-act with Evan Spiegelman, the role of transvestite Candy Delaney. It's absolutely transfixing. Ricky brings out one of the most endearing yet sad tales of a man who seeks companionship, not necessarily sex, from the rough trade that he picks up in a gay bar. Spiegelman gives one of the best performances of his life. He's in this role in which he plays both a dandy and Candy. Also, of course, on the bill, Garrett Prejean, who plays Carl. This is a man who's really using Candy, dandy, if you will, in any way that he can. A sailor who I believe is really the archetype for some real actual men who probably were in Tennessee Williams' life. Don't miss this lovely work, okay? The two-character play is next on the bill. That's a bit more confusing. It's a play which Tennessee considered his best work since A Streetcar Named Desire. It's a play within a play in which Irene Glazos and Joseph Rodriguez play Claire and Felice, a brother and sister really transformed by a real-life tragedy, and they play out their lives on stage. The two-character play is a device used by Williams in which he uses this play within the play to have the audience witness the actors on stage but become a part of them playing out their real lives as well. They're moving in and out of reality on the stage. Austin Pendleton directed this piece, and I found it almost experimental in its nature. This was very well done. Again, it took 10 years for Williams to write this piece, and in many ways he found it more autobiographical than any of his other works. I think that it's really key to your understanding of some of what goes on in his mind with his sister Rose and some of the other things that affected him in his life. Again, And Tell Sad Stories of the Death of Queens, and the two-character play is on now through April the 1st for the Tennessee Williams Festival and Southern Rep. Harold Gervais, meanwhile, has been producing Two for Tennessee. This is a series of plays, one-acts that are original that he's been doing for 7 years. This year they're partnering with the Tennessee Williams Festival to bring another two original one-act plays. The first is Blue Roses by Michael Santos. Now this stars three people, Mint Bryan, Julie Dietz, and Joe Siebert. It's set in New Orleans during Mardi Gras, and it tells the stories, believe it or not, of the struggle of a young woman against a portable, if we shall say, public toilet facility, okay? It's also the relationship with her and the wrong man, as it were. She has her gay boyfriend and her boyfriend, and again, there's a lot of comedy in there. Blue Rose, of course, is a reference to the Glass Menagerie, and again, we'd like to mention that all of these things are based in some way on Tennessee Williams. How to Build a City is a one-woman play starring Mary Pauley, written by Jesse Strauss. I found the acting top-notch, but the writing was a bit confusing for me. I wasn't sure exactly what Strauss was trying to say. It was a commentary, I think, on New Orleans, but much more than that. Very difficult, though, to make out a lot between the thunderclaps and the other sound effects. The play is directed by Gervais. Very interesting. It probably could use some additional workshopping, but I think it was really fine. Also, one last thing. The Tennessee Williams New Orleans Literary Festival always gives us some beautiful moments. Here's one captured on stage. If you will look, please. This is the Battling Blanches. That's yes. Aimee Hayes. That's Beth Bartley and Janet Shea as Blanche. And there, of course, is playwright Lisa Daremore on stage as Stella.
Thank you. It was terrific. And now time, though, for our picks. Philip.
I have to select the Metropolitan Opera National Council auditions, but if you can, go to amichimunk.org yes. and check out what you can do to help support Amici.
Sounds good. Thank you, Poppy.
Well, Easter is next weekend, so it's time to make those brunch reservations. I would suggest the annual Easter brunch buffet at Ralph Brennan's Redfish Grill. Also, Cafe B and Heritage Grill have wonderful options, and the grill room at the Windsor Court offering something very special.
Joel.
Well, since I've been down here in New Orleans, I've been talking with people about how Truman Capote, who was born here, his father was a very connected to a well-respected family should have a literary landmark, and we're looking for a literary landmark site, possibly even the Monteleone Hotel, because he loved to tell people that he was born there.
Even though he
and later,
wasn't
when they found
technically.
out that his birth certificate said the hospital
I think
name,
it's Truro, huh?
he
It's
said
Truro.
the Truro Hospital. He later said,
I didn't mean I was born there. I meant I was conceived.
Oh. If you're not of a theater mind or not of a literary mind, perhaps you'd like to check out the Mardi Gras Indian Super Sunday. It's this Sunday, carried over from last Sunday. These are pictures I took, and one of them, of course, features Big Chief Monk Boudreaux. And for those of you who would like to also check out a piece that's being done by Natasha Raymer, 24 Hours in the Life of Pontius Pilate, that's going to be Wednesday, March the 28th, and that'll be at the Jefferson Parish East Bank Regional Library.
Okay, and before we go to my picks, though, here's a montage of images from two St. Joseph altars from last week. The first at Cabrini High School in their chapel, and Judy Kelly, by the way, headed up that wonderful effort. And then the great ladies, this women's group at St. Dominic in Lakeview. God bless Mr. Benson. And now my picks. There will be an Easter egg hunt and family festival at the Sydney and Walter Bestop Sculpture Gardens. That's tomorrow at 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. Tickets start at $12. There'll also be an Easter egg hunt nearby at Storyland in the Carousel Gardens amusement park too. And that's tomorrow and Sunday from 9 a.m. to noon. The Pirates Alley Faulkner Society will be holding a free Meet the Authors event this Sunday afternoon at the Presbytere on Chartist. Featured authors include Mayor Mitch Landrieu and Tommy Sankton, to name a few. And don't miss a conversation between New Yorker writer and humorist Calvin Trillin and our own Errol Laborde this Sunday as part of this year's Tennessee Williams Festival. That will be at the Queen Anne Ballroom at the Hotel Montleon at 2:30. And don't forget Bach Around the Clock starting tonight at Trinity Episcopal Church and lasting until tomorrow evening. Thank you all so much. It's great to see you all, and thank you for watching. Good night.